Honorable Cecilia Guar and Honorable Paul Amoru, thank you very much for having responded to our invitation. A warm welcome to all of you. You are on the spot tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And, you know, we've been seeing the delegates coming in, and I'm sure you have been involved so much. Give us a feel of the CPC, the 67th CPC.
May we commit this discussion to prayers?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Father Almighty, we just want to thank you, Lord, for the glorious events that we have so far gone through, Lord. We thank you for giving us wonderful climate, giving us wonderful sunshine. And Lord, my God, we want to thank you for the function that took place today, Lord, my Father. And we pray that you be with us, guide us, and let the entire country be united to ensure, Lord, my God, that whatever is going to happen in Uganda now is going to bless all of us. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
All right, let me begin with you, Honorable Paul Amoru,
Yes.
giving us your take about so far the Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference taking place in Kampala.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having us on the spot. Today we had the opening ceremony. It is usually the tradition that the CPC conferences start with the small branches meetings, the women parliamentarians meetings, and then in the middle there is the official opening ceremony, which is usually very colorful. Traditionally would be attended by the Queen of England, who is the patron, and also by the president of the host country, in this case, President Yoweri Museveni. But the Queen sent her message, which was read to the delegates by His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni, and President Museveni was there today. The Right Honourable Speaker will be assuming the presidency of CPA was there. We had the executive committee. We had the speakers from the different Commonwealth countries, and delegates and many more other Ugandans that had been invited in their various capacities.
So in your case, so far, everything is so right and so far so good, right?
It's been amazing. We have had a walk down the memory lane 52 years back in 1967, when we first had it, and today, again, when we flashed back, there were many activities. Ugandans came from different corners of this country. We had performances, and our guests were very excited. In fact, the chairperson of CPA, that's the deputy speaker of the Parliament of Cameroon, Honorable Emilia, pledged before the president and all the delegates there that they will be honorary ambassadors of this country because of what they have seen so far.
All right.
So it's been amazing.
All right. That is the take of Honorable Paul Amoru. How about you, Honorable Cecilia Guar?
I think so far so good. I've been very delighted that I have seen that Ugandans are united to ensure that visitors are taken care of, and we have seen how the organizing committee have been able to put everything in place. Members have not been inconvenienced in any way. Accommodation has been enough. The feeding has been well. And I think yesterday was a very exciting day because we put in place 3 excursions. One which headed east, and they were able to climb the Kagulu Hills, including myself.
You conquered Kagulu?
Yes,
including myself. And we had a team that went to the equator, and they passed through Nkozi University, and another group remained at the center to visit interesting sites like Namugongo and other places. But this time around, the members decided that it will not just be an ordinary conference discussing about political issues or some of the social issues that are common to the to the Commonwealth countries, they have decided that it must be a conference with a difference. A conference where they are going to leave a message that will change the course of event in the whole world. Because we have acknowledged, and it has been part of our agenda, that while we discuss other issues, we should focus on climate change and the challenges that is facing us globally, and more specifically the poor countries like Africa and Uganda being part of it, that we should not ignore the challenges that we face coming from the climate change. So we have decided that while we visit those areas, we must plant trees. And I ensure that I was able to drive that event myself to make sure that we did not only plant ordinary trees or fruit trees, we planted some traditional trees like the tamarind trees that is considered also to be medicinal in many countries. We also planted shea nut, which is very strange, I think, in the central region, but we believe that any soil in Uganda, anything will grow. So we have planted those in all the three sites that we visited yesterday. So people were excited, and I was with the king. By this time, we were still having a dinner with the king in Jinja, and the king actually impressed us by giving us a very, very strong message in how we politicians should take the issue of climate change as a priority.
Okay.
So
now let's get into the specifics, because now you've brought in the real issues.
Yeah.
When it comes to climate change, you know, tonight, Honorable Cecilia Gwala, Honorable Moru, whoever is going to have dinner in this country, that dinner should have been prepared either using charcoal or wood. In other words, as a people in this country, we are in a self-destruction mode ourselves. If the former British Prime Minister, when he came to Uganda in 1905, when he was dazzled by the beauty of our country, he baptized us the Pearl of Africa. If something was to happen and he was to come back, would he call us the same?
Well, thank you so much. Indeed, as already highlighted, the sub-theme under climate change is central in the deliberations that will take place. And as you know, the quest to reverse the adverse effects of climate change, global warming, is a challenge worldwide. And we have people who don't believe in it, and there are people who strongly believe in it. Now, coming back home to Uganda,
Moru, I'm talking about our own wanton destruction of our forest cover that has been depleted so much in the last 30 years under our watch. And yet there's a government, there are people like you, there's a parliament, we have a ministry, we have so many responsible institutions that are supposed to protect our forest cover. They have not.
Yes, I think specifically on that, first of all, the gesture, the symbolism of what happened yesterday is that we must move and reverse the reckless behavior that is leading to destruction of our forest cover, interrupting our ecological setup, which already we have even started facing challenges. You know about the drought that affected most parts of this country. You know about the flooding that many times we have had. So indeed, we have local governments like in Gulu. That is very impressive already. They have a bylaw, and issues like bush burning, cutting trees. You've seen how we have been arresting
I want to
charcoal
put
burners.
you are a member of parliament from the NRM party. Your own party has not done enough. Away from symbolism, we need much more. We need to see what you're going to do. If Gulu has taken a step, there should be policy proposals that can be enforced. And there should also be alternative means of energy for people.
I think, Kamara, on that, we have failed on the issue of implementation.
Okay,
before Paul Amoro goes to the next step, I think I want your question to be answered. You said if Winston Churchill were to come back, what would he say? What would we tell him? That's a very fundamental question. I think we'll all be very ashamed of what we have done to ourselves. because it is very devastating to find that I left you clothed, now I'm finding you naked. What happened? I think that's exactly what we are saying. Churchill has done something fundamental for this country. And in my own heart, I think Uganda as a country must do something spectacular to honor Winston Churchill. Because by that statement alone, that Uganda is the pearl of Africa, it has sold Uganda from that time up to now. That statement, Uganda is the pearl of Africa, makes everybody want to come and see what makes Uganda the pearl of Africa. So that demand, that desire to see the beauty is very fundamental.
Honorable Cecilia Gwara,
so,
tell that to the people of Mbarara who are surviving on River Wizi, that has now become a trickle in the last 30 years. That's almost not there.
I'm coming to that.
Tell that to the people of Fort Portal, whose beauty of River Mpanga was a spectacle and it's almost no more.
You see, what I'm trying to tell you is this, that Winston Churchill summarized the beauty of Uganda of that time. Beautiful, glorious, and everybody wants to come. Now, what is left is what we are trying to say, is that if we are putting on a beautiful garment, it's torn and so on, what can we do to patch it together and bring back our beauty? That is your cry. And that's the cry of the people of Fort Portal, people of Dokolo, and so on. Now, let me tell you what we have started, what we started yesterday. I would like it to catch up as fire, catch up the whole country. And we are going to charge Parliament. We are going to ask Parliament to be in charge in driving an agenda to make Uganda green again. This is what we are, and we must be serious about it. We have called the entire Commonwealth to come and help revive our beauty, you know, and we should not let them down. We are going to take up this message, and we thank God. Busoga yesterday, through their king, they said they are going to take it up. Wherever we left yesterday, they are going to take it up. And we are going to ensure as Parliament that we are going to take this message to all our constituencies, and we are going to come up with legislations that are going to ensure that we'll put a framework of what we are supposed to do. You'll be held accountable district by district, and also the government will be made accountable, not only local government, but also central government. The central government must be able to tell us what happened to the Kavera law. Because I still see people openly, publicly using Kavera. When you go across to the neighboring countries, they're no longer using Kavera. In fact, in our neighbors, Kenya, they don't. Tanzania is not. Rwanda started much earlier. So what is it that we are doing, which is most obvious? Because what we are suffering from, Mr. Kamara, is people's induced disaster. Is disaster which we are causing it ourselves.
You are our members of Parliament. You are our legislators, and you make laws. We want to see the alternative ways of energy. For example, if somebody is cooking in Dokolo or in Kyonjojo, where I come from, they can find other ways other than just using charcoal or wood. I know it is hard, but what is it that we can do so that at least slowly we can start seeing some change? Is it energy cooking, energy saving stoves? Is it maybe some kind of subsidized gas or electricity? Because if we keep cutting trees, like nowadays we're no longer using firewood. Actually, people are cutting young trees, dry them up to cook. That mode is a self-destruction mode. As a people, we are facing an existential threat.
Well, just to assure Ugandans, our viewers out there, it's a special moment that for the next 1 year, that Uganda will be at the top of CPA. The resolutions that will come out of Munyonyo, we are going to be in the driver's seat. And when you are the driver, then you have to stay awake and lead as an example.
You know, we never implement our own policies in this country. We are not short of good ideas and good policies and good programs. Yeah. There is a problem like a demon that Uganda does not implement its own good policies. So what is going to change this time around?
Mr. Kamara, you must also agree as a Christian that when you sinned, you must pray the prayer of David, that you acknowledge you have sinned and you have resolve to change. So
Yes.
we are telling you here now, whether you are in government or you are in opposition, and thank God the way we are constituted today, my son here has chosen to be in the government, that's his problem. But I have remained on the opposition to keep government on their toes. So we will make sure, regardless of whatever political affiliation and your philosophy, there is one disaster that will not spare anyone.
All right.
So we are all going to be united on this agenda, and please do this. Declare what our young, declare what our young environmental activist said recently. He said, he blasted the world. He said, we are watching you. So now I want you, the media, to say, we are watching you. If we see any legislator using charcoal, we are watching you.
It's good you quoted. It's good you quoted the biblical David. But what I know about the biblical David, he got a sling and then shot at the giant Goliath and put him down. Where are your slings? And the Goliath is about to take us. Why is Goliath taking us down? We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guests tonight are Honorable Cecilia Ogwar and Honorable Paula Amoru. But let us first now go to get a clip from President Yoweri Museveni while addressing CPC.
It is wiser for the world leaders to respect the internal systems of each country and influence others by example. If our practices are correct, they will thrive and spread. If they are wrong, they will collapse. A lot of time and energy is spent on the enterprise of some groups trying to control the destiny of other people. This is wrong and unnecessary. History is our good teacher on this. Now that colonialism has been defeated, our advice to friends is that egocentrism, greed, and bigotry should be banished.
President Yoweri Museveni addressing the Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference in Munyonyo, and he's saying the big countries should maybe stay away and not try to influence things in this country or any other country for that matter. But also these small countries like ours should be able to balance their budgets, to be able to do things on their own. If you have people who are also putting money into your economy, who are also spending into the health sector, then those people whose taxpayers' money has been used in your country should actually also give you some advice.
Yes. Well,
Paul.
Let Paul.
yeah, I think the delegates from across, even those from outside Africa, you could feel that they identified with the message that President Yoweri Museveni was pushing across. Actually, he gave an analogy that when you have puppies and you're feeding them with milk, feed all of them equally, because you don't know which of the puppies will grow to become a real hunter dog. And so he's looking at the attitude of some of the world's developed countries who have over the years attempted to intervene and probably force in their social systems, political systems, without appreciating the social, economic, and also political context within those countries.
Are we not the Africans?
And most of it actually, even the most recent examples, you find that such countries usually end up in uttermost turmoil, chaos, and confusion, because the social forces, when a system is defunct and will not work, it's that internal weaknesses of a system eventually collapses, and you're able to have superior systems and structures that can now ensure sustainability. But once there's interference, as we have seen, you've seen in Libya, you've seen in many of these countries, the result effect is that there's more chaos, there's confusion and destruction.
Yeah, but are we not the leaders? Are we not seeing the leaders in Africa almost carrying more like a begging bowl into Western capitals? You know, the Africa-Beijing conference, the Tokyo Africa-Bay conference, and all are geared at, you know, but taking us there.
But I think,
why can't we?
Kamara, on that, it is true that most of our countries were forced in these needed situations. For the better parts of our lives. Uganda is just hardly 55 years of its own independence. So lots of resources were looted from this country. Our people, the most energetic men and women, were taken out of this country as slaves. And this definitely had very, very severe effect. And so by the time African governments started to reorganize themselves, financially we are completely down. But that story is changing. And that's why you can see China is setting in. It held on to its own systems and structures, and most of the world now, the West, including America, has embraced China, which is running a completely parallel system. Okay. And their success story.
Let me get in Honorable Cecilio Guar here. If we are destroying our environment at an industrial scale, if we have grand theft and stealing of public resources, hemorrhage of our resources at a grand scale, if we have lost our values, shouldn't we humble ourselves and, you know, swallow a humble pie and let the people advise us, for those who have gone through this and are doing it better?
I think the President's message was clear. The President's message, if I understood it, because I was there myself, was to say that we should allow individual countries to evaluate itself and maybe come up with a prescription of how they can come out of the situation where they find themselves. But at the same time, as he actually rightly pointed out, that if these developed countries give us money, then they should not follow that money and dictate what to do. But what I can tell you is that there is no country anywhere, not even China, which can give you money and they will not follow it up to dictate. Even China is doing it. But China is right now operating very tactfully because it knows where African countries have been disappointed because of the rigorous conditionalities that are attached to the loans, and therefore they have found a weak entry point, and that's where they have entered, and they are handling us in a manner that a person like me who looks further ahead, and I can more or less see where we are going in terms of the way we are investing into our economy and where that investment is going to drive the country. I can see that we are in for a debt crash, and you know it because recently Parliament discussed the status of debts in this country. Is not a good story, and I would want us to maybe shelve this discussion for a more thorough discussion at a time when we are probably doing a review on how we have performed in our budget system, how we have allocated resources, because you know corruption is something we cannot be ashamed of. It is like an acceptable crime. I used to call it some years back institutionalized corruption, which means it is now the character. If you are not corrupt, then you should not be in that position. That is the situation now as it exists. But what we are saying is, should it continue? The thing is, we cannot continue, because if we continue, the individuals are going to prosper when the majority of the people are going to sink. So we have to do something about it. But I want to tell you right now, at this time, when we have guests, we are not going to discuss hard issues which concern...
but I think we need to discuss hard issues, because when you talk about corruption, Honorable Cecilio Guar, we are ranked with countries like South Sudan, with countries like Burundi. In fact, our corruption perception indices, we are the third most corrupt country in East Africa. It's a shame.
I know it's a shame. And you see, that's what I'm saying. the situation is so bad that really.
So we sweep it under the carpet?
No, listen. I'm not saying we sweep it under the carpet. I'm saying I need more time, and I need environment when I can discuss in a very naked form what has happened, because we know it. For example, let me give you an example. If recently we come up with approval of a loan of over $384 million, okay, and which is us, Parliament, approved the loan, and then the minister, who is the political supervisor of that ministry, goes to the site, she's blocked from accessing the project. The permanent secretary, who is the technical person, and an accounting officer is blocked from accessing the project. What are you hiding? Because we are oversight. I mean, as a member of parliament, one of our roles is really to do oversight. And oversight doesn't mean I tell you I'm coming, therefore you prepare yourself, you hide all those books that you should hide. No, we come as investigating officers, we come as CIDs, we come as policemen, we come and announce. Now, if you're going to lock your gate against me, then there's something you're hiding inside. So these are issues that we need to discuss. So who is driving corruption? Why is it that people inside government are the ones now saying, oh, beware, there are mafias in this country? People driving this government. So we as a country now need to know who are these mafias who have been driving corruption, who are siphoning the resources of the country. We need to know who these mafias are. And we need to address.
I think Honorable Paul Amoru should be in a position to tell us, because his party is in government. Yeah. You cannot be agonizing with us because your party is in power. You cannot be saying we have mafias, we are surrounded, we are finished.
Exactly.
Yet you should be in the lead.
Yeah,
why do you?
Who is finished?
By the way, superintend
Kamara,
this kind of situation?
I think there's a misunderstanding that, for instance, if my mother, Honorable Cecilia, says I'm in government and she's not in government, of course that's not true, because our system, in fact, we should not be having. We have minority leader. That should be the context and nomenclature for it. In Parliament, you have the leader of opposition, who should actually be the majority leader. We are all in government. We are part of one. Parliament is a branch of government, and Parliament
decisions are made in a caucus of the NRM.
Not
and because of the terrain of numbers, you just come here.
Even in the caucus of the opposition parties. But what I can tell you is that indeed it's very concerning that you find within every system you have bad apples. The onus is on us to face off with the bad apples and pick them out.
Let me since now you have talked about bad apples, let me just refresh your mind. I wonder, in this conference of the Commonwealth members, you've been able to tell your colleagues that there's something that is not common with them. Because sometime back we saw soldiers get into your parliament, which is almost like a hallowed ground, beat you up. Some members were even tortured, and others lifted up. I wonder if that was swept under the carpet, or you say, look, yes, we are members of the Commonwealth, but we have things here that are not common with you.
I can tell you, the delegates,
have you been that frank?
The delegates who have come here, these are politicians. They're not from mass. I can tell you, in Britain, just yesterday, the Supreme Court delivered a judgment regarding the actions of the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. And I think about 3 weeks ago, 22 members of his party who defied the position, we are showed the exit door. If this had happened in Kenya or in Uganda, you know, it would be blown out of proportion. So we have challenges.
That is nothing comparable
Hold on.
to the gory images we saw in the Ugandan parliament.
What we can tell you is, we don't ever want to condone a situation where the precincts of parliament is invaded. But also, we don't want members of parliament, honorable members of parliament, to pick up clubs. Parliament, we disagree through debate. You articulate issues. And the reason why we want to champion the principles of democracy is that people do not think the same way. People will never belong into the same association.
Accepted, Honorable.
So once you get physical, like in this studio, I'm debating with you, and I don't like what you're telling me, or the line of question you're taking, and then I jump onto your collar and start to tear it apart, then that is, you've crossed the line. And so you have defied the very decorum that we should be fighting.
I'm trying to say that this parliament,
so when you strip that also out,
your parliament, the 10th parliament, should be able to tell the colleagues that have come here that here where we are, we have crossed the line, they have made us cross the line, or we have crossed the line so many times.
Just yesterday, I was having a discussion with a number of members of parliament, and they had a rebuke for us members of parliament. They also had rebuke for security agencies. For example, under no circumstances should an unelected leader who has come to parliament to argue their case resort to physical violence. And so that we should be ashamed of. Also, we think parliament, unless it has a situation that cannot be contained with, because parliament has an elaborate security
Honorable Cecilio Guar, I also think on your part, because
areas.
Actually I expected Honorable Cecilio Guar, that we always called the Iron Lady, to be able to put up these things, to tell the things like they are, that look here, this is not, this is not common with you, this is how we do our things. In fact, that also in regard to the rule of law, that sometimes members of the security forces have also attempted to defile the hallowed grounds of our court by maybe getting people who have been freed by courts, and things that are not heard of in other parts of the world. These are the things, so that they can help you.
I think, Mr. Kamara, you, in leading this debate, you missed a point. We talked about the common principles that we, as the Commonwealth family, should respect. Because we were talking about if we have a system which is corrupt, we have a system which is not right, it's bound to collapse. I think that came out in the statement of the president. And I think even my colleague, Paula Moro, has emphasized that. But I want to tell you, we have in our midst people who are determined to hold on to power. There is what they call the super glue. And that super glue they have discovered, it is in the army. Once you have the army, it is a way of gluing the state together so that you are driving the state. The state machinery becomes really owned by few individuals, and they are the ones who drive. And it doesn't matter what they do, which doesn't agree with the law, it will still drive on. So this is where we want to agree on the minimum standard that all members of the Commonwealth family must accept. And unless we agree on that, we are going to allow, unless we agree on that, you are going to allow Mugabe to rule until he becomes too old to understand what is going on. You are going to allow members of the family to overstep the boundaries. But we need to come up with a prescription on where are our boundaries, so that we know what democracy demands of you and me as a country, what the principle or the philosophy demands of me as a responsibility, what is the evaluation of my performance. And I think we need to be sensitive. But we are aware of one thing, that if you have super glue and you can put that super glue together, you can force your way through and make sure that if you have the resources, you know, when I see a young man like Amoro, I can more or less measure his needs. This is a man who needs an extra house, the man who needs an extra car. I buy you off.
This is it?
Yes, I buy you off.
Is this what
so
listen, because you have brought in a very interesting angle. I want to remind you that Lango region,
I want to justify.
Which was the fortress of the opposition.
I want to justify my position. What I'm saying is, I'm not talking about Uganda, but I'm saying there are people who are doing things differently. And the way they're doing things differently is they know, I can do this, I know how strong Mrs. Ogwal is, and I know if I can give her this, she's likely to break, you know? And this kind of thing, we are going to capture the youth, we are going to capture the women, and so on. So before you realize it, because of that facade, falsehood, a lot of people are going to fall by the wayside. And let me tell you, needs can make you break the law. Needs.
Okay.
So when you come to a situation,
just before that, I just want to remind our elder here, the Honorable Cecilia Ogwal, that Lango region, where all of you come from, I suppose, was a stronghold of
and
UPC.
it's still a stronghold.
It should have been
of UPC.
Still a
the
stronghold.
impenetrable fortress
It's still
of
a
UPC.
stronghold.
It has been breached, Mama. It has been breached.
That's
It's no
true.
longer an opposition firewall. That's why you see the Polar Morus. That's why you see the Betamong. That's why you see other people who are also being called now Mols. If your political ancestors, I'm sure now they should be turning in their
but I think
your forefathers must be turning in
Kamara,
their
there's
grave.
something you're not getting right. First of all, I don't think permanently someone, if today I am UPC or FDC, I should be condemned no matter the circumstances, whether I've reevaluated the principles, the ideology, and I have lost every right to then associate with any other political grouping. That would not be democracy. So yesterday, we could have had UPC, even in government. We could have had UPC dominant in Lango, as you say. But I don't think if tomorrow UPC or the most people of Lango have shifted now and they are supporting the NRM or they are supporting any other party, then now it becomes a historical problem that no, you people traditional, you must be here. So I think let Ugandans be free to choose to belong. And that decision should be respected. Secondly,
you seem not to have listened to the assessment of Honorable Cecilia Ogwal.
No, let me.
In fact,
and I'm coming to
as
that.
an example.
No.
That the
because
politics
I'm young,
of today are more of
because
transactional than
you are,
ideological.
For a young person,
It's not an ideological conviction,
No,
but a
even old
transactional
people.
and
politics.
Even
my
old
response is like this. You
And I
see,
can't take her words
I think
lightly
what
because she understands better.
what we have been pushing for is that let Ugandans be free to engage in an election which is fair, which is regular, and which is free. For example, at here, my mom, the people of Lango, the people of Dokolo have continued to show confidence in her. But the ideology you are pushing is that because of some fashion or a social structure, a political system that we are being preached to, if the people of Dokolo are still interested in Cecilia, she should be pushed out against the people's will. Anybody who would want to replace her should mobilize, should not just come and say, no, I think Honorable Cecilia has been here for this long. The issue is, are her people interested in her? Secondly, what is her performance record? So sometimes we remain, if we are criticizing, that does not mean we completely sweep any other progress we have made under the carpet, because most times you don't see this come out. Anybody listening to you for the first time would imagine it is all gloom, it's all doom, everything is not moving, nothing has changed, and there's no opportunity for us to fairly evaluate what have we got right. Let's celebrate that. Let's encourage people who are doing something right. Then what have we gotten wrong?
Mr. Kamara,
let us push that.
Let's have this.
Let's
have
this
this discussion. Really make it relevant to what we are discussing. What do we get from? What value do we get from this club, the Commonwealth Club? I think that's what we are trying to do, and I think I've come out with one of the suggestions that. Let's have a benchmark. Let's have a minimum standard, which is like when we are Christians, we know our principle is to study the Bible, we pray. Those are basic, you know. I don't know of any Christian who doesn't know Jesus Christ, or any Muslim who doesn't know Allah and the Bible and what Quran. So I think basic minimum. When we talk about democracy, what are you talking about? When you talk about a fight, genuine fight for corruption, what infrastructure is in place? And don't only talk about infrastructure. Some people are very smart. I have taken trouble to read systems, what makes some systems succeed. And I found that some 6 systems have mechanism of evaluation and follow-up. So you know who has been stealing where there has been leakage. I have seen a bit of it in Rwanda, although we are not moving very well on political path, but I think economically there's something we need to learn from Rwanda. They track They know, they evaluate, they monitor. So we need to have some minimum standard in place so that we can evaluate our performance and we can be able to tell that no, we have gone off track and so on. But I want to tell you, this is what I would want to learn from the Commonwealth family. I don't want to go personal at the moment. I don't want to discuss internal small things. Let's talk about internal big things that can justify why we should remain in the Commonwealth. And one of the issues that I came out with, and I would want to still have it discussed in the Commonwealth, is how we can enhance the initiative to mentor the women and the youth, to mentor them so that somebody is grounded in ideology, somebody is grounded in a principle. And when you look at money, you say, no, even if you give me that money now, and you are going to block me from preparing myself academically and so on, I will not be able to reach where I'm going. Where youth are focused, where women are focused. I think that's what we want. And we need the youth to be mentored. That is my cry. We want the women to be mentored. Because these are soft social, what do you call it? Pressure groups. And they are soft in the sense that they can easily be swayed.
Okay.
And I think that is where we need to start from. The second point, which I would want us to take note of as we discuss this issue, is how to transform the Commonwealth itself. We should not be hooked on the past. We should not be following the path of yesterday. Things have changed. We are talking about dynamism within the club now. Because we recognize that dynamism, how do we translate that dynamism in terms of the engagement at the moment, economic engagement, social and so on? How do we do it? I think that is where we need to be relevant in this particular debate so that our guests can learn and can read our mind and say, this is where Uganda wants to go. And I think that is some of the ideas that I would want to come out with.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, let's look into specifically issue of representation of women and youth. How can we increase on women representation and youth, and what kind of impact should we expect when the numbers have gone up? We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guests tonight are Honorable Cecilia Ogwar and Honorable Paul Amoru, and they were looking at the benefits of hosting the Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference in Kampala. You also in your discussion talked about increasing women representation and youth. I think let me start with women because at least we have you as a representative. If the affirmative action policy of district women representative was meant as opposed to build capacity, was it not misguided? Because if you had an able person like Honorable Cecilia Ogwar represent leader or represent Dokolo for 2 terms, and then go and compete with the Paul Amorus and the Patrick Amaras, and let the other sister also come and also build their capacity. But when it is you in that position building your capacity in perpetuity, it loses meaning. It loses meaning.
I think maybe you have not quite understood the concept of affirmative action in the way that we design it. I'm
actually talking about the design. It seems to be
the good news I can give you is that I was in the Constituent Assembly. I was part and parcel of that discussion, and you may not understand why my young sister Rebecca Kadaga has got stuck on the district seat, and you may wonder why Mrs. Ogwar for the last 3 terms has been on the district seat. It's because people do recognize, and we women have recognized, that when you take on the district seat, you are able to touch many areas in the constituency. Whereas when you look at our male colleagues, for example, Honorable Paul Amoru, he has half of the district to take care of. You have the other half by Honorable Kotogong. But then here is a woman MP who is touching the lives of the entire district. That's a bigger responsibility.
I agree with you entirely. I'm only saying, if Honorable Cecilia Guara has done it for 10 years, then they should be asked another Honorable Anne Okello to do that for another 10 years, so that you have many people, many ladies whose capacity and exposure to positions of leadership increases numerically. And if for you, when you continue, I'm not even blaming you or anybody else. I'm saying, isn't maybe the design and the policy a little bit
we have actually found that when you talk about the 10 years tenure or whatever, not only for affirmative action, it should actually be across if they want. But that particular policy was evaluated. I think you remember it was actually put in the constitution that it will go through an evaluation after every 10 years. So when it was evaluated, they found that the challenges which are still ahead is such that we could not change. And I believe that people like us would support. I mean, for me, to give me Paul Amoro's constituency, I would feel idle because I would have nothing to do. But you give me a district, I have something to do. So there are a number of things that we discuss, and very practically looking at what a woman can do, what we are capable of doing, and where will the affirmative action end and where it will start. And that we are looking at, and I believe when the time comes, and I hope it will come before the next election, if it could, then we can do the evaluation. And people have also asked, why members of parliament should stay in parliament forever? And we are saying that is the culture of the Commonwealth. You can represent your people as long as you want, not as long as you want, as long as people
can still vote.
As Honorable Paul Amoro had put it earlier.
Paul Amoro,
yes.
Let me take you the issue of the youth, because this country is largely more than 70% young people. But you only have 5 slots for the 70% of Uganda's population. Isn't it better to increase on the slots? For example, you have the military in the house. By the way, what are they even doing in that house? Where they shouldn't be. Representing about maybe 40,000 people, yet only 5 to represent 70% of Uganda's population. It doesn't make sense.
I think probably to touch on the one for the army you brought. Again, most times, we need to remember the context, where we have come from. When you see the turbulent history of this country, all those periods, the dark periods talk about, the army has been a constant factor. And I think that's why in 1995, the frame of the constitution, which includes Atatia, felt let's bring all these significant, because the institution of the army in this country, anybody who does not recognize their contribution or the need to harmonize them with the rest of the administrative structures, and then we see how to fight it. This can be reviewed. Like now we are getting to a stage where over the years we have seen relative stability like it has never been before. So I think it worked, because when the army now was brought into the body politic, and their views, their ideas can be heard and stays on record on Hansard, I think we cannot take for granted that for all these years, what used to happen every 3-5 years, it does not happen. So that's something to celebrate. Now, coming back to the issue of the youth that you asked, the idea that the Commonwealth is having, that politics is just one small area that we are looking at. There are many more other aspects. Even this applies to women. Because even if you increased 3 women per district, you will still end up with just a handful. But where can we see real impact, both in the lives of women and young people? One of it is having them become productive. On the side of both women actually and youth, they do not have access to capital. They do not have, most of them at the countryside, they don't have access to land. Some of them have no access to adequate education. And so 80% of our population is relying on agriculture. So that's why we want to redesign. If we need this population to be productive, where should we put the resources? Most people who try to get facilities, loan facilities from commercial banks to do agriculture end up in perpetual debt because it is so costly, so expensive that it cannot work. So now this is the review that's being to come. Then positions, appointments. Again, like you see, Uganda, outside politics, when you go to major government ministries and agencies and departments, women are taking charge. Of course, Parliament, when you look at Parliament, how it's structured now, the Speaker is a lady.
We have
The leader of opposition is the lady.
The clerk.
The clerk is the lady.
So okay, if that is the
Government
case,
chief whip
yes,
is the lady.
Okay,
Then you go to agencies.
Then why do we see funding to sectors that will help women? Money is not coming in like it should. I'm talking about like the Ministry of Agriculture. I'm talking about the Ministry of Gender. If you have all these people, then where is their impact?
We're not talking about the
furniture.
budget.
Camera.
Yes. We're talking about the furniture. You see, once you've put the house, the structure, then you now realize that in this house, I need to bring in the chairs. I need to bring in the dining table.
Structural integrity.
So now we are comfortable enough that structurally in our system, in our governance structure, we have recognized this. We have Equal Opportunity Commission. That now every budgeting circle, a ministerial department must be issued with a certificate of compliance.
Okay,
I think we are moving. We are moving somewhere.
I want to take you and the viewers to the rationale or the justification for army representation. First of all, for the young generation, they may not have had the trouble to read the history, that it is not the NRM government that brought the army to Parliament. You recall the late Oito Jok, who comes from Lango, was the chief of staff, and he was an army representative in Parliament. We actually had 10. When I say we, means the UPC government had 10 in Parliament. And today
when you were PPS.
Well, it doesn't matter, but I'm saying, I was saying we, meaning UPC. So don't mind the title I was holding at that time. And today you also have 10.
Yeah, two wrongs don't make a right.
Exactly. No, what I'm trying to say is that history is very important. So what the current government did was to say, I think there's something good in keeping the army there. Let's keep them there while we watch and see whether they are going to contribute to pacifying the country during that process. And in fact, I would say that during the UPC government, Oito Jok used to sit with the opposition, with Winnie Byanyama's father, Boniface Byanyama, on the other side. And they would not want to sit with the government because there are some of them who felt that they were not supposed to serve the government in power, and they kept to that principle. So we had this situation, and I want to tell the young generation that this is a matter which we need to evaluate, and we need to assess the situation. Do we still need the army there? Because it becomes absolutely horrendous to see a general, an army general, pointing a finger at an old lady, a senior citizen like me, to see a whole army general strangulating a woman on duty as a policewoman. You know, this behavior of generals is making people to think twice. If they can behave, if a general can behave like that on the street, if a general can behave like that, moreover targeting a woman on the floor of Parliament, in Parliament, within Parliament itself, then what kind of general do we have outside Parliament, outside the eye of the public?
You must be the most magnanimous person I've ever seen. That you have suffered the wrath of the general,
yes,
but you still want them near you.
No. I'm not. Listen, I said we need to evaluate, because now, if we have general, and when I'm saying this, I don't want you to think that I'm talking about General Tumwine. I've already told people publicly that I have forgiven him, because God says He knows He will be the one to avenge. If he has done things with bad heart, the Lord will follow him with him. But as far as I'm concerned, let the law follow him, as Parliament did their investigation and found him culpable for having attacked me, and he stormed out of Parliament in disgust. So he exposed himself as to the kind of person he is. So really, as far as I'm concerned, I was exonerated. and I have forgiven him. Between me and him and God, I've forgiven him. But let the investigation, let the whatever sanction the government parliament wants to prefer on him, let it take its course.
Allow me quickly to open the lines. At least I get 1 or 2 people to be able to contribute to this program, because it's also more about them. So you can see the numbers on your screen there. Please pick your phone and call us and tell us what you think. And if you have an idea or something to contribute, please make it very brief so that at least we pick many more. And should you disagree with the panelists here, please show them respect. I have a call online. Hello. Hello. It looks like we're having a problem connecting.
Yes, hello?
Yes, good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Majid. I'm calling from Koboko.
From Koboko?
Yes.
You are on air. Please go right ahead with your question or comment.
Yeah, the first place I want to thank you, the panelists here for today's show.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes.
Are you getting me?
We are getting you loud and clear, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to commend you for the good work you are doing.
Okay, thank you.
I have 2 things to put on into this, the gentleman and
Honorable Paula Moru.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to, they talked about corruption.
Mm-hmm.
That when you talk about corruption,
Yes.
it is something that is not in our blood. When we take the vaccines, like the polio vaccine that is given for the children, it prevents them completely from polio, measles, and the other things. But now when we see the corruption we have in Uganda, it is like the polio vaccine that is injected in us that will never relieve us from that sort of corruption.
It has become part of our DNA.
Yes.
So?
What do we do then?
Yeah, are you getting me?
What do we do then?
The simplest thing is for us to do in this country is completely to uproot the basis of that corruption, which is the current sitting government that has never even done anything after seeing clear that ABC will happen and openly. Like our madam and our mother said here, Parliament approved some money. And those who approved the money, to go and see what is exactly the money is doing, they were
denied access. Okay.
the country kept it quiet.
You have made your point, sir. Our caller from Koboko, we thank you very much. And I'm sure Honorable Cecilia and Honorable Polamoro will be able to respond to you. Let me just pick 2 more. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name? Good evening, sir.
Hello.
You are on air. Can you hear me?
Yeah?
Good evening, sir.
Let him switch off his TV.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, you are on air. Please go right ahead with your question or comment. All right. I think we have a problem connecting to that caller. Let me try to pick another call online. We have a call online. Hello. Okay. You are giving us an echo into the studio. Unfortunately, time is not even on our side. But I'm going to try one more, and that will be it. I have a call online. Hello.
Maybe
Okay.
TV
Okay.
on.
I'm cutting the callers, unfortunately. I wanted to have this kind of engagement, but at least we just have one issue from Koboko, and the caller is saying, you know what, corruption is so much embedded even in our DNA, almost in our DNA. I don't know whether we can remove it without killing the host. But if you can comment on that and also make your concluding remark.
Well, I really want to agree that if there's anything that we should put all our energies, we should pull together and don't even try to politicize it, is on the issue of corruption. Wherever we see it, across the structures of government and even in the private sector, So, as a member of parliament and on the NRM side, we feel depressed when we see people accused of corruption. Either they are not speedily prosecuted and brought to book, their properties taken by government, and so we definitely, anybody who is concerned with the future of this country and improvement in service delivery should fight corruption, and we don't condone it, and we are angry about it.
Thank you very much.
Now, we have not had time to go through all the sub-themes of this conference, but want to generally observe that this conference is not hosted by a political party, and that's why you have seen a bipartisan support.
Yes,
I moved the motion on the floor of parliament to galvanize the participation. So we are Ugandan, and many times we should be able to pull together. Atat was using the analogy of co-wives. When there's a marriage ceremony, and this time is the turn of the daughter of your co is being married, all of us pull together. We have issues, but we think we want to put our minds together and work towards making our country better. So issues of urbanization, we have not had time to discuss it. Issues we have discussed climate change. We have not discussed the issue of unemployment aggressively. So there are many areas that we want to be discussed. As I conclude, my last point is that Uganda has had this rare opportunity to once again be the focus of many countries across Commonwealth, and I think we have so much to learn. We need to humble ourselves and have that deep reflection that now that the entire Commonwealth is looking at Uganda, now that the resolutions that will come out, Uganda will be at the forefront on climate change, on youth, unemployment, on women empowerment, and all those other sub-themes that are important to us. We think we'll champion this, and the benefits also that this conference is going to leave to Ugandans is both immediate and long-term, and we are very proud
Thank
to
you very much,
have
Honorable
witnessed it.
Cecilia Guar. You are parting short.
Well, on corruption, I think we need to show some seriousness and commitment to fight corruption. And how do you show commitment? First of all, there must be goodwill. The laws that we have put in place must be put into effect. We must implement them. We should not just talk about it and put the laws in our record books, but we must be seen to be implementing, starting from serious banning of kavera or polythene bags. And next, the issue of deforestation must stop. There must be a serious commitment from the government to say no more cutting of trees. If anybody is seen cutting trees, this is going to be the punishment, so that people know that the government is getting serious, or the penalty will be very high. These are some of the things, and we should leave the army out of it. I think these are some of the things. We are now seeing the army, taking advantage and camping around forestry, and they're the ones cutting. So this is a deep-rooted corruption. It must be uprooted. Second, we must see in the budget that there is evidence. We have IGG in place. Now, how much money do we put in IGG? We are having another government inspectorate emerging from State House. And now we don't know what that State House branch is investigating as compared to IGG. Has IGG failed, or what has happened? So we need to evaluate. We should not just put resources in an ad hoc manner. We need to evaluate and say this one has failed, let's try another option. So government has not been serious in fighting corruption. Government is not facilitating the agencies that we ourselves have put in place to help us fight corruption. They are not facilitating in terms of budgetary support. So we need to increase that.
But it's Parliament that should appropriate that money.
That's what I'm saying. Look here, Parliament does not decide how much budget, how much money should be given. to different agencies and to different departments of government. It is the government that has the responsibility and the role to work out the budget, come to it to Parliament. Parliament will discuss it before it can give you the money. So, but finally, I want to tell Ugandans that we are blessed as a country, because for Uganda, just by that statement that the Pearl of Africa made a whole CPA countries, members, to come to Uganda in 1954, even before we became independent. They came here just to see what that beauty was all about. So you find 1956, we had a captain of FUFA who comes from Dokolo, Owin Manase, who led a team of footballers because people were getting excited about Uganda. So they invited these people to London to play football. They couldn't manage to, they gave them boots for playing football. They couldn't manage playing with boots. So they removed the boots and started playing Lao. Oh, Uganda. And they were able to score. And they amazed those Bazungus. So Uganda is blessed. Look at 67. We were hardly 5 years after independence. We were able to host a very successful CPA. And you know our record on IPU and so on. I want to appeal to Ugandans. We need to recognize the role our daughter has played in all this. Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, we have been blessed by that lady. And I think we need to honor her. We need to thank also His Excellency the President. I think he has been very supportive. The message he gave today was very uniting. So I think these are the kind of things I would like to communicate with Ugandans.
Thank you very much. We would want to agree with you that the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga has been phenomenal, exceptional in serving her country with commitment and dedication. So we say congratulations to her and the entire team of the Ugandan 10th Parliament. And if it were able that my Luo language was good enough, I think we would have had this discussion in Langi. But Ladip Polamoro, thank you very much.
Apoyo Batek. At least you can say that one.
Atat Cecilia Ogwal. Apoyo. Good night and God bless Uganda. We can always count on us. You can always count on us on giving you updates of the Hoima by-elections. We can only do that tomorrow. So we'll have to tune in morning at NTV so that we give you a comprehensive view of what has happened there. We have a few indications, but we don't want to do that because we want to follow the law and give you the concrete of the results that have come up from Hoima, because I understand all of you have been trying to get to know what is taking place in Hoima and Kabong. Good night, Uganda.
Thank you. Okay, now tell us what has happened.